How you all doing, everybody? It's me, Crazyfrankie, and I'd like to welcome you to my Week 17 4 key game picks. Before we talk about Week number 17, I just want to give you guys a quick little heads up going into next week's video, Week number 18. Week 18 is my special edition video, which is one of my least favorite videos to do because all it is just we're going to be going over the playoff scenarios. And it's and basically I give you predictions of what's going to happen in week number 18 as well. Maybe we'll talk about a game or two. It's just basically going over the playoffs scenarios and what I think is who's going to clinch what. It's my least favorite video to do because it's long and it gets a little tedious. So this is a video I expect to be very low rated. So it's really not my favorite video to do. But I mean, this is the last week. I got to talk about the final week of the regular season as we head into the playoffs. But for now, that video won't be done until next week, so I'll give you so keep posting on keep a little bit of note on that going into week 18. But anyways, talking about week number 17, I want to try to fly through. I will flash the text to the current seedings of 1 through 6 in both. 1 through 7 in the AFC and NFC, current playoff positioning and all that, because I just want to get I just want to get into my thoughts from week number 16 before we talk about week number 17. Now, this has been an interesting week because week 16 really, and when it started out with the Chargers beating the Broncos and that free kick, obviously that rule that has been in existence for so long, but the last time that a kick like that was successful was 76, and it was ironically by a Charger kicker. But other than that, the Broncos shot themselves really in the foot, losing to the Chargers. To give the Chargers credit, they came back in the second half and they beat them. And the Chargers now have swept the Broncos and now have a much better positioning. But they still have to clinch one more game in Saturday's game against the Pats. If they do beat the Pats, they will be one of the wild cards in the postseason. Right now, the Ravens beat the Steelers. As you look at it, the Ravens beating the Steelers last week to even up their season records against each other in play. Are 1-1. The Ravens clinched the playoff berth. Also, the Packers also clinched the playoff berth as well. So right now, there's still a lot of playoff positioning to be determined on. But when I look back at the rest of the week, a lot of it was expected. Obviously, some injuries. Dell from the Texans, boy, shattering his knee. It was painful. I saw I've seen the replay so many times of it. It's just awful. That's to Dell. Hopefully he will come back strong next season, but obviously the Chiefs are now one win away from clinching the overall number 1 seed in the AFC. Lions bouncing back to still control the number 1 seed in the NFC. Eagles shot themselves in the foot against the Commanders, and give the Commanders some props though. I mean, it looked like they were dead to rights in the second half, given the fact that, look, they got a little bit of help because Jalen Hurts was injured in the first quarter with a concussion, and it really helped out the Washington Commander defense a lot. And the fact that Kenny Pickett, or I call him Tiny Hands because his hands are tiny, and I don't like to make this show fodder, but yeah, Tiny Hands. I mean, that basically is his nickname. So yeah, they basically shot themselves in the foot. The Eagles really shot themselves in the foot. They could still clinch the overall number 1 seed, but they need the Lions to stumble in week 17 and in week 18. And obviously, look, I think the Eagles kind of are out of the running now to get that number 1 seed because Minnesota's still a factor because the NFC North still hasn't been decided. And by the looks of it, the Lions, as they bounce back against the Bears, I think it's going to be pretty obvious that week 18 game is going to come down to who wins the division and probably who gets the number 1 overall seed in the NFC. Anyways, my friends, we need to get on to week number 17. All right, let's begin with key game number 1. We're gonna have one of the Christmas games on Wednesday. Hopefully, I'll try to get this video up ASAP before these games start on Christmas Day. First, the game we're going to talk about is the Steelers against the Chiefs. The Chiefs are currently a 2-point favorite in this one, and I would say that that's about right. The Steelers really shot themselves in the foot against the Ravens. Basically, Russell Wilson, the big interception in the fourth quarter really cost them the game. And obviously, defensive-wise, J.J. Watt was not 100%. I don't know if he's going to be. Who knows what the status of how his injury is now, because he was not effective in that game against the Ravens, and the Steelers really stumbled in 2 games already. And obviously now with them and the Ravens now tied for the AFC North, it really puts a lot of pressure on the Steelers now to get victories to win both games because they control the tiebreaker still, even though the Ravens beat them. Wilson was 22 of 33, 217 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception in the loss against the Ravens. Patrick Mahomes in a big victory over the Texans was 28 of 41, 260 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. I think it's put up or shut up time now for the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. Let's see what they made of. And it could not have come at a worse time if they're missing, if one of basically the heart and soul of their defense is TJ Watt. How healthy is he going to be effective, especially against KC's offense that has really come alive, and they're getting right at the right time. So if you're a Chiefs hater and all that, this could not have come at a worse time right now, knowing the fact that the Chiefs have been trolling us. We knew what to expect with this football team going down the stretch. I knew that they would be toying with us when they look like they're vulnerable, but the way I see it right now, I mean, you look at their offense, they're getting intact. This is trouble. This is trouble, and if you're a Chiefs hater. And at the same time, too, I could see them beating the Steelers, and I'm gonna pick the Chiefs to beat the Steelers. They're gonna wrap up the #1 seed. The Bills have had every opportunity. They stumbled along the way against the Rams. That really cost them. But the way it's looking right now, the Chiefs are gonna get that #1 overall seed. Steelers defense is banged up, and the offense is trying to figure out things, and it's gonna be tough. I mean, the Steelers would have to play flawless football to have any shot of upsetting the Chiefs. And by the looks of it, let's say if the Chiefs do win this game, obviously they'll rest their starters in week number 18, and that game's not going to matter to them for Denver. And we'll get to Denver right now. That's going to be another team I will talk about in a minute. But for this game here, the Chiefs, they want to wrap up the #1 seed. They know they need this game. They want to wrap it up. They want everybody to go through Arrowhead in the postseason. So yeah, this is definitely going to be Chiefs in this game here. The Steelers are banged up defensively. I don't see them beating the Chiefs in this one here. I'm going to pick the Chiefs at -2. They'll definitely cover the points on this one here. I'm going to pick the Chiefs over the Steelers. Key game number 2, the Denver Broncos versus the Cincinnati Bengals. For the Bengals, this is an elimination game right here. No question. They lose, they're eliminated. Because the Bengals have to win, have to beat the Broncos to own the tiebreaker. And at the same time, too, they got to get some other help, too. Now, Bo Nix in the loss to the Chargers was 29 of 40, 263 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. While Joe Burrow in a big victory over the Bengals last week, 23 of 30, 252 yards, 3 touchdowns, and no interceptions. I think it boils down, when I look at this football game, it's going to boil down to Denver's defense. Denver's defense has played very well in the last 4 weeks, right up until the Chargers game, which was a bit surprising that Denver's defense that played well in the first half of that game, and then all of a sudden, they basically fell apart in the second half. A lot of question marks now with the way that Bo Nix... I mean, Bo Nix played a bit better than he did against the Colts 2 weeks ago. But now you could... A game against a red-hot Bengals team that's obviously... I mean, they have to win this... They have to win this game, and they got to win in week number 18 and hope and pray that's going to be enough to get him in. Right now, Denver still holds a slight edge in terms of record. The Bengals would have to win out, and the Broncos would have to lose. Also in Week 18 to the Chiefs. If the Chiefs rest their starters, I just don't see that happening. But anyways, for the purposes of this game, this is really for the Bengals an elimination game. They lose this game, they're out. There's going to be no way to catch them. There's no way to catch any sort of playoff hope. The way I look at this game here, Denver's defense has to come up big against Joe Burrow and that offense. Their offense is getting hot at the right time. And I just think right now, you look at Cincy's offense and the way they've really come together. I like the Bengals in this game. Bengals are a 3-point favorite in this one here. It'll probably go to 2.5, maybe 2. But I just think that the Bengals offense is on fire and they're clicking. And if Denver's defense doesn't really show up in this game, that's trouble. That's trouble going down the stretch because they could be eliminated themselves if they lose to the Bengals and lose to the Chiefs. And the Bengals, if they win in week number 18, would hold the tiebreaker. So this is going to be quite interesting down for this game, in this game, because really the Bengals need this game as much as the Broncos need it. But I'm going to say the Bengals do win this game barely, because I have a sense that the Broncos defense will wake up a bit. But I just think that Joe Burrow and that offense, they're kind of sort of possessed right now and trying to make the postseason. And I think that the Bengals will barely beat them. I think that Denver's defensive problems, the way that they struggled in the second half against the Chargers, and the Bengals could see that. I think that could be trouble for the Broncos defense if they don't find a way to get their act together. And I think the Bengals are going to win this game here. I think they'll win barely. It'll definitely be probably by a field goal or maybe 2 points. I'm going to pick the Bengals at -3. It's hard to say if they're going to cover, but I like the Bengals in this one here. I just think that their offense is clicking at the right time. And Joe Burrow has really played. You cannot ask any more of Joe Burrow and what he's doing to try to get this team in the postseason. I'm going to pick the Bengals at -3, Bengals over the Broncos. All right, key game number 3. Going into the NFC now, it is the Falcons versus the Commanders. The Commanders are a 4-point favorite, and I would say that's about right. Michael Penix in a game started last week. Obviously, they benched Kirk Cousins. Pretty much we've seen the last of Kirk Cousins in Atlanta, and this is now the Michael Penix era. Penix was 18 of 27, 202 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Jaden Daniels in a big comeback victory over the Eagles, 24 of 39, 258 yards, 5 touchdowns, but he was intercepted twice last week. This is going to be quite an interesting battle between two young quarterbacks, especially given the fact that Daniels is obviously locked up the Rookie of the Year. He's going to get it. And the way they're getting close, Washington's getting close to a playoff berth. And really right now for Atlanta, they're trying, the only way they're going to get in the postseason is if they win the NFC South Division. They currently hold the tiebreaker right now at the moment against the Buccaneers because they swept them. And in the game, the Falcons have to have in order to at least hang on to that lead in the division. I look at this football game here. Offensive weaponry, the Commanders just have better weapons offensively. And Atlanta, I don't know what you're going to get out of this team. Penix has given them some hope, but last week they were playing a sorry Giants team that isn't going anywhere. When I look at this football game and the way Jaden Daniels has done a fantastic job of what the Commanders are doing right there, they're trying to build a winning culture and something that the franchise hasn't had since that terrible, disgusting owner days of Dan Snyder. And he's an evil man. May that guy rot in hell. When I look at this team, this is a team that's destined to make the postseason here. And what Jaden Daniels has done in that offense for Washington and what Dan Quinn has done with that team, I like the Commanders in this football game. I think they'll beat the Falcons. I don't know where the Falcons are at in terms of both sides of the ball. Penix is giving them some hope offensively, but defense-wise, they have a lot of problems in the secondary. And Jaden Daniels is going to expose that, and I like the Commanders in this game at -4, and I'm picking the Commanders over the Falcons. All right, and key game number 4, it's a big one in the NFC North. It is the Packers versus the Vikings. The Vikings are a 1-point favorite in this one, and I agree. The Packers have been playing just unbelievable football. Obviously, they lost to the Lions a couple of weeks ago. Jordan Love was 16 of 28, 182 yards, 1 touchdown, no receptions, in a blowout against the Saints last Monday. And for the Vikings, a big win last week for the Vikings. Sam Darnold was 22 of 35, 246 yards, 3 touchdowns, and no interceptions. This game is a big toss-up because both teams are playing fantastic football. And obviously, to a point, Minnesota hasn't, which we all thought they were going to be mediocre this year, have really exceeded expectations. And this is, look, the Vikings have already beaten the Packers earlier in the season, but this is going to be much harder because the Packers are on a roll. Jordan Love is much healthier, and this is a game I could see going back and forth. And I think a lot of it's going to do which defense is going to step up and make the big stop. The Vikings kind of have the better wide receivers, but the Packers have the better running game. So it boils down to the point. It's a 50-50 toss-up. I don't know who wins this game here because this game is pretty much pick-em status and a good pick-em status because both teams are in the NFC North. Both teams are already in the postseason. So basically right now, it's for the Vikings. They're trying to keep pace with the Lions to have that showdown in week number 18. If I look at it from a standpoint, if the Packers can't stop Justin Jefferson and Addison and a lot of what the Vikings playmakers that they have, I like the Vikings in this game. I think they're going to sweep the Packers. I just think that the secondary, look, the secondary does have a little bit of some problems. And they were lucky to get some turnovers against the Saints. Well, obviously the Saints are terrible this year. But I think to me, that secondary, I think that Sam Darnold's going to torch that secondary again. Now, keep in mind, the Vikings had a big lead at Lambeau earlier in the season, but the Packers almost came back and beat them. But fortunate enough, the Vikings held on in the end. So, like I said, this is going to be a tough game for the Vikings here, and obviously the Vikings want that #1 overall seed and the division. I'm picking the Vikings. I think they'll barely beat the Packers here. It should be a good one in Minnesota for the second meeting between these two teams. It should be a good one, but it's going to be hard to say who wins because the Packers are on a roll themselves. They want to make a statement in the postseason. Obviously, they can't win the division, but but they're ready to make a statement. But I just think in this point here, Minnesota wants that #1 seed and the division. And I'm picking the Vikings here. They're determined to get it. And it's going to come down to that showdown in week number 18 against the Lions. I'm picking the Vikings at -1 to beat the Packers here. And that's how I'm going to see it that way. Vikings over the Packers. Like I said, next week is my special edition video for week number 18. So I just want to take this quick time to mention a Merry Christmas, everybody. Hopefully you're having a holiday season with your families and everything and all, as I am doing after this video. And I will talk to you guys next week when we have the season finale for my special edition video for week number 18. Until then, everybody take care. Merry Christmas to you. Happy holidays.